Evening, everyone, and welcome to council in the middle of summer. It's always great to be here and also get a little time off. So here we are on the 29th meeting of the 144th Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas. And are there any disclosures of interest from any of the members? Seeing none, minutes.
I have a motion that the minutes of the meetings held on July 15th, 2024 be confirmed. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next, under presentations, we have a civic award presentation to make to Zachary Roberts Neef. The Council and the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas proudly present the Volunteer Individual Award to Zachary Roberts Neef in recognition of your exceptional dedication and outstanding service, both as an Army cadet and through your impactful volunteer work with Elite Stars Elgin Basketball. May your commitment continue to inspire others to make a positive difference in their community.
Great. Zachary, great to have you here tonight. It's fantastic to be able to recognize people who at a younger age than mine are doing great things in our community. So thank you very, very much. And we have fans tonight. We don't usually get fans, so we're going to hold the certificate so you can go wherever you want, take pictures. And you can yell and scream, it's okay. We like it too. Billy, you can get one too, all right? My official photographer. All right. Now, before we moved on, I have told Zach that that's the most exciting part of the council meeting tonight, and that he's not obligated to stay and watch the rest of it. But he can stay if he wants. And Ethel, I wasn't saying anything bad about what you're going to do. You're next, and it's exciting too. But after that, it gets really dry. Madam Clerk.
Your Worship, the next order of business are deputations. We have Ethel de la Pennetier here to discuss fetal alcohol spectrum disorder awareness.
Do you remember how this all works, Ethel? Yeah, your light's on, you're good. You can bring it down more for yourself if you want, please. Yep.
Your Worship, Council, and staff. I have three things I want to share tonight. One, an event, an invitation. Two, I want to tell you what has happened over the years. And three, I want to tell you why I'm still here. I want to thank staff for being so encouraging with my annual event. They almost want to make sure that I get here because they're doing their job right. So I'm so thankful for them. And I want to offer an invitation to this important event for FASD on September the 9th at 9:09, when bells ring 9 times and the mayor reads the proclamation to remind pregnant women to have a non-alcoholic pregnancy. Now, what has happened over the last 20 years, Your Worship, Joe, and previous mayors, Jeff Kohler and Minister Steve Peters, and standing in 1 year was Jerry O'Brien. There were 2 other mayors, Cliff and Heather. I got my adding right. 4 years, 5 people. So everybody knows the proclamation because a lot of you have already done it many times. Bob De La Pelletier is the architect of FASD Day in St. Thomas. He set out to have the key people at the event to learn what they could do to help move FASD in a bill. The most important people that were at this event were the MPP, the MP, the fire chief, the health unit, and the police chief. These are all people that can do something about this issue. And what they heard was that stigma is a difficult thing to accept. Sorry to say, we are still here working with FASD after 20 years. We need Ontario's education bill to educate justice, healthcare, and education to be passed for this FASD lifelong disability to change. I would love to keep coming with a victory story of a bill being promoted to the success of this great architect and his vision to accommodate people living with FASD. In 2009, I continued on this quest. Hopefully, I can bring success to FASD. Now I say, red shoes rocks, let's kick FASD. Thank you for listening to me one more time. I'm hoping soon I won't have to come back, but it would be a celebration if we got a bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethel. You've gotten very good at keeping it under my time. So you're doing excellent. There's time for questions of you if any member of council has any questions. You've been here so much, we know everything you know. Anyway, if I can just from the chair, thank you for the work you do on FASD and how persuasive you are to some of us to come out and help. Councillor Peters, did you have a question?
Yeah, just quick comment. Thanks, Your Worship, and thanks, Ethel, for the work you've been doing. Did the proposed FASD education bill ever receive third reading, or did it just get introduced
Twice it's been
to second
sitting.
reading and,
Yeah,
and it
it's still waiting.
didn't go any further? Is the person that sponsored the bill still an MPP?
I think so.
Might be worth having a chat with them.
Yeah.
Sometimes at the end of a legislative session,
Yeah.
there's a lot of back and forth between the government and the opposition of trying to advance certain bills. And if the person that sponsored it is still there, it might be worth having a chat with him or her.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ethel. Sorry. Thank you, Mrs. De La Pelletier. Being very familiar today.
Your Worship, Council will now resolve itself into committee of the whole to deal with the following business. First is the strategic direction and development. First item is the 2024 to 2027 strategic plan, final action plan. I have a motion that reports CMO 1024 relating to the 2024 to 27 strategic plan, final action plan be received for information, and further the council approve the 2024 to 2027 strategic plan, action plan as presented. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Wookey.
Questions or comments on the strategic action plan? Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to thank staff, particularly coming out of that June 24th meeting when we had that opportunity to sort of review and, put on the floor some of our own thoughts of what was missing. And I really appreciate how staff was able to capture the discussion that evening. And I think it has helped make for a better plan. I don't have anything specific that I wanted to add, but I just, that was
a great roadmap.
That was, and it is a wonderful roadmap.
Yeah. Well, I think they're pretty good too. Councillor Wookey.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I just want to thank the staff for putting it, the major initiatives section in a nice condensed form. And we like colors too. So we like colors. We all like colors. And, but it makes it manageable for us. Because and anybody in the public can look at that and in 3 minutes, they can get a handle on what's going on. And it also helps us keep track of things. So thank you for the format and what was included and what was not included in the major initiatives slides there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you. I too am very grateful of the additions that we made on June 24th and the way that it was presented. I also have been, like many others around this table, that have been glued to the television set with what has been happening over in Paris for the last 14 days. And on that, out in the community, I am asked still, is the community center and aquatic facility still part of the strategic plan for the city? And I asked again to Taylor right at the beginning, and yes, it is still part of it. So I just wanted to bring that to council's attention and to the public's attention that yes, it still is part of the strategic plan for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, worship, through you to staff. Have we arrived at how we will report or our progress and how many times a year and that kind of thing?
We've had some good discussion, but I'll turn it to the city manager to think about what his plans are and how we'll follow up.
Through your worship, I think our intent would be to report annually because they're big steps and it'd be hard for us. I think it'd be kind of repetitive to see it on a biannual basis. So our intent would be to provide you with a report card annually. And at that same time, when you're getting that annual report card, we'd also be providing our benchmarking package. And we're just sitting down now to develop what that benchmarking package looks like. So we've actually got a couple of drafts of that we're reviewing internally. And then we'll be giving you a kind of a draft benchmarking package later this year and telling you that's what we're going to report on next year. So.
Go ahead.
And I think the timing of that, we would, if we had it early enough, then we could tie it all to budget as well.
Through your worship, yeah, our intent would be to probably be reporting on in September. So it should be kind of the annual, you know, the 1 year anniversary of your adopting this plan. And then that leads you into the budget. So.
Okay. Great. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, worship. Great report, interesting to read. I guess one of the questions I would have, what is the time frame on some of these that say not started further on in the reports? Who decides the time frame? Council or the managers of each department?
Well, there's some suggested, as Councillor Wookie graciously pointed out, there's some good color on there as to what the dates are. But look, council is the ruler of its own roost. And so if there's something in there you want to go faster, convince your council and let's see what else we can do. If you'd like it to go slower, convince your council and we'll see if we listen to you. Thank you all. So on the strategic plan, action plan, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to the 10343 Yarmouth Center Road demolition notice. I have a motion that report ID 2724 relating to the demolition of the former Van Patter home located at 10343 Yarmouth Center Road be received for information, and further that report ID 2724 serves as the required 60 days notice of intention to demolish as outlined in Section 9 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Moved by Councillor McCauley, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Councillor Peters.
Thanks very much, your worship. Notwithstanding the fact that it's not a designated building, is this something that we out of courtesy should be sending to the Municipal Heritage Committee just to let them know that this clock is ticking?
Yes.
Your worship, but we'd be pleased to forward that to the committee for its meeting. I believe it's next week.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item on the agenda relates to an application by Almas and Lisa Jamani for a proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 16 Mitchell Street. Just for the members' information, a request has been received from the owner to defer the matter until a future meeting of council to allow the owner to provide additional information for council's consideration. So we'll place that on the next available agenda once we have received that information.
Okay.
The next few items relate to notices of public meetings to take place by Zoom on August the 22nd, 2024 at 10 a.m. This is from the Committee of Adjustment. The first item is for a minor variance by Brandon Kaur to permit an accessory building with a height of 5 meters, whereas the maximum permitted height is 4 meters, and an enclosed area of 111.5 square meters, whereas the maximum permitted enclosed area is the lesser of 15% of the total area, which is 214.29 square meters or 67 meters, and that's at 149 Chestnut Street. The next is for a minor variance at 65 Gladstone Avenue, and this is to permit a covered porch and stairs 0.79 meters from the front lot line, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a minimum front yard depth of 6 meters. The next item is for a minor variance at 59 and 53 Redan Street. And this is to recognize any zoning deficiencies that have resulted from the recent subdivision of the semi-detached dwellings at 51 and 53 Redan Street, including lot areas, lot frontages, lot coverages, and location of the existing semi-detached dwellings and porches. The last one is for consent at 451 Wellington Street. And this is by the trustees of the St. Thomas Christian Church to sever a lot with a frontage of 60.65 meters on Wellington and an area of 6,883.33 square meters from the property at 451 Wellington Street for future residential purposes, and retaining a lot with a frontage of 60.79 meters on Wellington Street and an area of 6,816.32 square meters, and also to create an easement for mutual access purposes. Unless the members have any further items for this committee.
Councillor Wookie?
Yes, under unfinished business yet, or is that where we are, Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry, we're actually in new business, but
Okay. I'll wait then. Okay, thank you. I got to make sure I don't get in the wrong side of the clerk. That's in politics, that's a bad thing. I'd like to get an update, if I could, from the fire chief regarding the shipping container issue that we've been dealing with. And while I'm at that, I just want to say welcome to the new deputy fire chief being here tonight. So on both counts, thanks.
Well, since our fire chief is coming up to speak, we'll let him answer that question, but we'd let him also introduce his new friend.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to council, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to Jeff Topliff. Jeff is our new city's deputy chief. Jeff brings with him a ton of experience. Jeff comes from the Windsor Fire Department, where it's a generational thing from grandparent to his father, himself, his dad, and even his brother's a firefighter in Niagara Falls. So firefighting is in the family, to say. His son actually replaced him on Windsor Fire Department. Jeff was with Windsor for 25 years and then retired and was just on health and safety with the new Gordie Howe Bridge. So he brings lots of experience and also sits on the board of directors for Hotel de Grace. So with that, welcome our new deputy chief.
Thank you. Okay, back to business. Containers.
For you, Your Worship, to Councillor Wookie. So yes, we did a full investigation on at 76 Fairview Ave, where the CCAN is located. We opened the doors, did a look inside, and there's nothing in there that is hazardous. They had some storage of, it looks like the gentleman does some woodworking. So there was some woodworking supplies. There was no flammable liquids. So under the NFPA and the Fire Prevention Act, he's well within his rights to have what he has stored in there. So you see people with stuff stored in their garages. So he had nothing in there. So at this point and time, it's not a hazardous situation at all.
Okay, thank you, chief. Unless there's other questions of the chief, I didn't see any, so, all right. Next.
Your Worship, if there's no further items, we'll now move into community engagement and services. The first item relates to a road closure request for the downtown Oktoberfest event. I have motion that report ES 3524 relating to the downtown Oktoberfest road closure request be received for information, and further, the council approve the temporary closure of Moore Street from Talbot Street to the north entrance of the Moore Street parking lot and Talbot Street from the east side of St. Catherine Street to John Street from 10 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. on Saturday, September 21st, 2024, to allow for the downtown Oktoberfest. Moved by Councillor McCauley, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
Great. For discussion, questions? Councillor Gibson?
I'm really looking forward to this one. It has to top what we had last year. It was so much fun, even
Yeah.
with all the rain. We had a great deal of fun. I know I certainly enjoyed it, and I hope everyone will come out this year again. Thank you.
Thanks. We have a hardworking committee planning bigger and better things, so I'm looking forward to it. Seeing no further questions, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
If there's no further items for this committee, we'll now move into infrastructure and civic operations. First item relates to the Phase 3 design for Center Street construction. I have a motion that report ES 3624 relating to Center Street construction Phase 3 design be received for information. Moved by Councillor Wookie, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Councillor Gibson?
I would just like to thank staff for including the removal of the reducing 18 parking spaces to keep the corners clear in the infrastructure bill there. I know Councillor Peters and myself were both concerned at those corners. So I'd like to thank the staff. Thank you.
Councillor Peters?
Thanks, your worship. My comment is that, you know, we've done the initial phases. We had a good wide road allowance to work with. Now, as we progress further to the west, we do not have as much road allowance available to us. And I'm concerned about the significant loss of parking. You know, I'm with Councillor Gibson. Corner of Queen and Center needs cars moved back. Center and Metcalf, same thing. You hold your breath making a left-hand turn onto Center Street off of Metcalf. But beyond that, I just would like to know, I realize we want to have the top end of a bicycle pedestrian pathway, but do we need to maybe have a bit of compromise for both sides to respect the new modes of transportation that are coming along, but as well think that there are still people that are going to be parking on the north side of Center Street? Be interested to hear from staff.
Great. I like a new guest speaker. This is great.
No problem. Good evening. Through the mayor to Councillor Peters. So the Center Street construction Phase 3 project is the last phase of the corridor redevelopment and multi-use trail construction started in 2018. This phase will implement the lessons learned. And as you mentioned, one of those lessons learned is the sight lines that you talked about. And due to the intersection spacing between the streets in this last phase, there's not enough room for parking in order to maintain those sight lines.
Okay. Further questions? I go to Councillor McCauley, then Councillor Wookie.
Of those, it looks like there are 57 spots. Of those, what's the usage of those and who uses them?
Of the on-street parking? Yeah, so again, through the mayor to Councilor McCauley, there is a real mix of people who use the 10-hour spots, people who park for access to the businesses there, and some of the residents on the street who would use those parking spaces today.
Go ahead.
And is there parking currently available in that area that they could use outside of what is being removed?
Yes, for sure. So we do have the parking lots, the Center Street West, the Center Street East, the Elgin Street lots and the Metcalf Street lots that are very within easy walking distance of that area. Another thing to point out too is the one street section between Stanley Street and William Street actually does not have parking on it currently. So it's no change from the existing condition.
Councillor Wookie?
Thanks, your worship. Councillor McCully kind of addressed the thing that I was looking at is what is the utilization rate on those other parking lots that are options? In other words, is there a lot of space available on a generally daily basis? Are there times where somebody would not find parking there? It is my kind of just anecdotal observation that there usually is room in those parking lots, but I don't know. Was that looked at as part of this? Because I'm concerned about the loss of the parking as well. Thanks.
For sure. And in ES 6619, the council report about parking in this corridor, it did identify that there was a available parking in the radius of the project within a 2-block radius of this area. And it does, it is a factor. The courthouse uses the Center Street West parking lot. Definitely parking utilization is something that we should continue to look at and evaluate if we need more 2-hour spots, if we need more 10-hour spots. But there is, as you observed, usually parking spaces available in the area.
Okay. Other questions or comments on the Center Street? Seeing that, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That's carried. Thanks.
Next item relates to the Waterworks Park update. I have a motion that report PRF 2024 relating to Waterworks Park update be received for information, and further, the council authorized staff to proceed with investigating the costs associated with a dam assessment and associated reports, including a flood damage assessment analysis. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments on the report? Councillor Baldwin-Sands?
Thank you. I was very grateful to receive this report as representative of Kettle Creek Conservation Authority. And what is further upstream from this Waterworks Dam is the Dalewood Dam. And this report talks about working with KCCA in order to do a full and fulsome assessment. I noticed that Adrian is on the call right now. I was hoping she would like to provide further comments from staff. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. Through you, Mayor, to Council Baldwin-Sands. We are really in the preliminary process of looking at this project. It's been on our radar for the last few years, knowing that the dam needs to be reviewed. The last time that was done was in 2001 was the last assessment. As well, I believe KCCA just finished an assessment of the Dalewood Dam last year. So they are able to help us with the resources that we need in order to get this started. And just in the last few weeks, we've had to replace the stop logs that failed at the Waterworks Dam due to rain that we received. So we're looking forward to hopefully diving into this and getting a plan to move forward with the repairs.
Thank you, Adrian. Gary, Councillor Clark, sorry.
Thanks, Your Worship. This report is very timely. I've just had a couple calls from members of the public who we're kind of calling for a review of the dam. So it'd be interesting to see what the consultants have to say. It was their feelings that for environmental and ecological as well as safety reasons that dam may be redundant, and before we invest a lot of money into it, it might not be needed. So it'll be interesting to see what the pros have to say.
Ms. Griffin, on that one?
Thank you, Mayor, to Councillor Clark. There was some write-up in the previous assessment that talked about what the flood analysis would look like. and how it may affect the lily ponds in the park. So what we really want to make sure is, you know, whatever way we decide, we still maintain, you know, the portion of the park that's really important to the public, which is the lily ponds. So that will be something that council can decide when the report comes forward.
Okay. Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Worship. That's exactly what I wanted to focus in on is the lily ponds. There's been a dam at Waterworks Park since 1890. That dam that's falling apart was built in 1904. And again, I'm not an engineer, but I understand hydraulics of water. So that dam maintains the level of the big oval reservoir in Waterworks Park. The level of the reservoir in Waterworks Park maintains the levels of the ponds. So if you had gone down there 2 weeks ago when the stopboards blew out, the reservoir dropped, the ponds dropped. So the easy option of dam removal is we lose the reservoir and we lose the ponds. And that's where I'm supportive of seeing this go forward, because it may not be as simple as just taking the dam out. How do we maintain the parks, the lily ponds? So the other part of this, Your Worship, I'd like to hope that we can do is trying to, is much work as staff can do in advance, Adrian, of, you know, we're not pre-approving a budget and giving you a carte blanche, but I'd like to see staff move along as far as possible, because if we do approve this in a budget in December, that way we can keep the momentum going, and perhaps if we're going to bite the bullet and take on significant work, that we can deal with starting next spring. Because the other issue we're going to have to deal with down here is Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and we're going to have to work a schedule around when you can and cannot do work in the waterways because of spawning. So the quicker we can keep this one moving along, the better. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
Thank you. I appreciate Councillor Peters' comments on this issue, and very much also would like to point out that with Kettle Creek last year, there was a major tree planting in that area. I was hoping that this report would address some of that. So maybe Adrian, could you talk a little bit about what is also at risk down in Waterworks and the loss of all of those new trees that have been planted?
Sure. Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Baldwin-Sands. We did work with KCCA last fall to plant a number of seedlings in the back area along the reservoir. We've also incorporated through a grant we received from TD Friends of the Environment, a trail that is going through that area, along with some native plantings that we're going to do and some signage to help educate the public on these native spaces. So yes, aside from the lily ponds, there are, you know, a lot of flora and fauna down there that would be at risk if there was a flood. So we're looking forward to keeping those projects in place and continuing our work with KCCA. And just to speak to a bit of what Councillor Peters said, I'm hoping with the recent Dalewood Dam assessment that we can go back to KCCA and rely on a lot of their resources to start making connections in order to properly plan how this report could work out.
Great. Further questions on the update? Councillor Clark.
Just, I know in conversation over the years, we've talked about the possibility of a bridge to the other side, or whether there's any value in expanding in the park in size, and whether that's a possibility, and whether or not when they're doing the work on the floodplain, whether or not they could keep that in mind as to what the possibilities would be in terms of what was needed if we wanted to put a bridge over to the other side, linking it more over to the concession road. I forget what the name of it. Water Tower Road. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Further questions, comments, or information? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to Fairview Avenue Corridor Study and Design. I have a motion that report ES 3724 relating to the Fairview Avenue Corridor Study and Design be received for information. Moved by Counselor Wookie, seconded by Counselor McCauley.
Questions or comments? I'll go to Counselor Peters first, then Counselor Herbert, then Counselor Baldwin Sands.
Thanks, your worship. An interesting report. Again, it's part of the transportation master plan. You know, Fairview Ave was just rebuilt less than 30 years ago, and here we are now going to consider spending a significant amount of money to narrow the road. And we'll deal with that at budget time. But I just ask of staff when this comes back, that perhaps there could be some staging options as well from a budgeting perspective. Because I see this as if we're doing this in one fell swoop, this is going to take a significant bite out of a capital budget. And I don't want to see all our tax dollars, capital tax dollars go into a single project and take away from any other work that we would do around the city. And also, if we could look at this from a priority standpoint as well too, as far as the project, because I know what I would be voting for first and foremost is the removal of the Fairview Ave Bridge and the rebuild of the Burwell Fairview Talbot Street intersection. So just that as this moves forward, if we could see some options of how it can be staged.
Okay. Counselor Herbert, then Counselor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you, Worship. Well, it's an interesting report to read, and I welcome the reconstruction of the Fairview Talbot Street intersection. But I guess the only thing I would like to see, why are we putting stoplights back in again? They say it's a busy intersection for traffic. Well, that's what roundabouts do. They take care of the traffic. And I just think it's a step backward. I think it would be good. If you've been to Paris, they have a 15-lane roundabout around the arch. We're talking 2 or 3 lanes. It could really be nice for us to have a roundabout there. Citizens of St. Thomas have really adapted well. I don't have any stats from the police or the fire, how many accidents have occurred at roundabouts, but I'm sure there's stats for intersection T-bones and stuff running red lights. So I would like us to take a look at the roundabout. Anyway, just my comment. Thank you.
Counselor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you. And thank you for this report. I remember back in 2008 when we were talking at that time about purchasing the rail lands and how beneficial it would be to do in the future a level crossing here at Fairview Ave. So when I read this report, I spent some time on the weekend going east to west and north and south at this intersection to see if I could provide any pedestrian style feedback. And I really appreciated the emphasis on the active transportation piece. I will note that last night, right when I was at that corner traveling east to west, how 2 young cyclists came down the hill very, very quickly through a yellow light and then went around. So there is very little safety because of that hill, et cetera. So I certainly do appreciate this report and how they put it together and recognize that active transportation needs to be taken into consideration. Also, we've always talked about when you're traveling north-south and making a turn to the east, when you are coming up the Port Burwell side, and how that to navigate on an ongoing basis has been something that we have been concerned about for a very long period of time. So for those reasons, I am very thankful for this report and looking forward to what comes forward to council in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Clark.
Thank you, Worship. When the busy corner of Fairview and Talbot is under construction, has there been any consideration in the planning of pushing through Park Ave to Talbot to help alleviate some of the traffic that's, that usually travels down that normal route? I know we don't own all of that property, but I believe we were trying to make some headways in purchasing that so that we would have a right of way. And I'm just wondering where we're at with that.
Thank you. Thank you. Kevin's coming up. Mr. Taylor-Beck, do you have some quick answers?
I do, Mayor Preston, through you to Councillor Clark. Those negotiations in order to acquire the right of way of Park Avenue are still ongoing. So until we can secure that, we won't be able to push any traffic down through Park Ave. If we do make that connection, I think I mentioned before, it'd likely be a right in, right out type of intersection onto Talbot to mitigate any left-hand turns out or into Park Ave at that location. That's the update that I have for you.
Okay. Do you have a question to Councillor Herbert's roundabout question? Or an answer to it?
Actually, yes, thank you for reminding me, Mayor Preston. Councillor Herbert, within the report, there was a bit of an analysis that looked at both an intersection, a signalized intersection and a roundabout configuration at Talbot and Fairview. And through that analysis, the preferred solution was to move forward with a signalized dual left-hand turn lane because that seems to be the predominant traffic movement through that intersection. I think people heading to Talbot and then going right up onto Fairview to get to the expressway is the predominant movement. So that's why the signalized intersection is preferred at this location.
Councillor Gibson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question in with the intersection for pedestrian. So it's under the accessible pedestrian signal. So that's where the voice comes out where it says, wait, wait, wait. We received myself and Councillor Peters, we received a letter from Sheila Dinnan, and there's some timeline where we have to have them all anyhow. But I was wondering if that is a consideration at this crossing intersection for pedestrians, if the voice activation will be in place. Thank you.
Anything on that, Kevin?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Gibson, any regulatory requirements will definitely be in as part of the project, depending on when their effective date is. But we can definitely look to make sure, because I think right now we have the birds and the chirps to help signalize, to help the notify those with accessible needs to cross. But I am aware that it's now supposed to be a voice rather than just the bird and chirps.
Okay.
I'll go
So-
to Councillor Wookie, then back to Councillor Herbert.
Follow up. You're up.
Or you have more? You go first.
Just one, yeah, sorry, just to follow up. So the indication that Ms. Dinnan was telling us is that the chirping isn't loud enough when you're at a large intersection. So when you're standing near the post and it's like I'm not visually impaired, but it certainly stopped me when I'm looking and waving to somebody and I almost walked out and it said, wait, 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 which I think would be more I would be more interested in having that than having a bird chirp. Thank you.
Councillor Wookie, then Councillor Herbert.
Thanks, Your Worship. Mr. Liebeck, I got several things here. First of all, I'm pretty excited about this. I like this idea. I'm a big proponent of getting rid of 4 lanes there. I know some people don't find that too popular, but I like what's happened with Fairview Ave south of Elm Street. I think it's worked well. I've certainly not gotten any complaints. So I have a comment and then 2 questions, I guess. My comment is when I see the proposed design, it's got the bike lane and the sidewalk beside each other, separated from the road. And my comment there is I would like the bike lane. I know this decreases safety. I'd like the bike lane on the road to make it consistent with what is south of Elm Street. I ride this quite a bit. And secondly, my reason for that is we have so many different types of scooters on the road now that go so many different kinds of speeds. If we have the bike lane raised and separated and be right beside the sidewalk with no division, and I might not be looking at that correctly, I think we're asking for trouble with somebody doing 35 kilometers an hour on their scooter in the bike lane while 3 people are walking side by side, chatting with each other. So I'd like to encourage something that will have these scooters and bikes on the road, because I think that's way safer for the pedestrians, because that's a major commuter route. So when I see the diagram, it looks like the bike lane is away from the road, which is safe, but I prefer it's on the road and for winter maintenance. So that's a comment. The question, 2 questions. One is about the tunnel. I'm quite excited about this tunnel going underneath the road. How much of a grade will that create, or is there enough room below? Like, how's that going to go? Will the tunnel go down and then up? Will it be lighted? Will it be have a drain in the bottom? Like what are we looking at for that tunnel that will go underneath? If I can ask that question first, then I have one other question. Thanks.
We're bringing in the expert.
Thanks, Councilor Wookie, through the mayor. So the pedestrian tunnel that we haven't designed the actual structure yet. So, but it definitely will not be as high as the existing structure. We'll be able to get the grade down several meters to allow for a smooth approach to the Talbot Street intersection without impairing sight lines. That's the critical piece. Obviously, the intersection sight lines and as was mentioned here before, increasing the safety of that intersection. But it definitely will be down at the track level, the former track level, and on either side to have pedestrian ramps to bring people up to the street level.
Okay, I just follow up there. So yeah, I'm just concerned that we have that, the sight lines are not obscured by the tunnel. And I'm just trying to, and I was there today at Briarwood, and I was kind of looking that direction thinking how is that tunnel going to be high enough for tall guys to walk through? And, you know, is it going to have to go down? Like, how's that? So I know you said you haven't planned it yet, but it doesn't look like we're going to need to drop the tunnel down and then back up on the other side. Is that correct?
That would be correct. Yeah, we wouldn't want to create a drainage issue, obviously, with that pedestrian tunnel there. I think there will be another similar type pedestrian tunnel as part of the industrial development. And so potentially using similar concept to that one. So.
Okay, thank you. Then just one other thing.
Yeah.
I've long wanted a pedestrian lighted crossing at Forest Ave in Fairview. So now that was more crucial when it was 4 lanes, because I've been on the right lane going north and south, or north specifically, and you can't see the crossing guard when there's lots of traffic there. It's extremely dangerous and it's very busy there. So are we talking about maybe a lighted ped crossing there, or is there still going to be a crossing guard, or what's the pedestrian situation going to look like at Forest and Fairview? Thanks. And that's it.
The plan at this point is to do a PXOD, B, which is the flashers on the side of the road, similar to Talbot Street. And the next step would be signalization of that intersection. So at this point, with the 3-lane cross section, that's acceptable. And whether or not we maintain a crossing guard at that location, that's up to council. But
Okay, Councillor Herbert? No, you're okay. Any other questions or comments? If I can, from the chair. I'm with Councillor Wookie. I love and Councillor Baldwin Sands, the transportation activity layout of this roadway. But I'm also trying to look at it like we won't rip this road up again for 25 more years. And as the population in our community rises from where it is today, somewhere around 50 to somewhere around 70, will a 2-lane road with a center turn lane handle the traffic that a 4-lane road would handle? We've got to be able to look forward. I'm not saying yes to either one. I'm asking you from a traffic study point of view. All of the strategic planning we're doing is looking out that far in that population. So.
Thank you, Mayor. In response, the quarter study that was done looked at a very, very conservative growth study, similar to what was approved by council earlier, done by planning earlier this year. And it looked at a very high growth rate, 80,000 people growth. But keep in mind that this is a corridor that goes through the heart of St. Thomas. And so some of the growth will happen elsewhere, won't necessarily directly impact the number of vehicles on this street. There definitely will be an increase in traffic, and the traffic study done by Paradigm was very comprehensive in the looking at each different scenario, the new volumes with the projected increases and mitigating each problem that arise. So what the Fairview corridor design will include will be those mitigation strategies that were recommended.
Great, thank you. Councillor Kohler?
Thanks, Your Worship. That was actually one of my questions too, so I'm glad that you asked that for whether or not they took the future growth into it, but also with a project like this, there will be PICs, public and information centers, right, for with that, and when would we look at starting to open have them?
Thank you through the mayor to Councillor Kohler. For sure, we always do PIC, Public Information Center, prior to the construction. In this case, we're looking probably in the later this year, November or likely November.
Okay. And I really, if I could just say, I really love this weekend. There was a lot of activity about this plan on St. Thomas happenings, and we'll talk about it tomorrow night on Mayor's Update too. This is great that we're hearing active conversations on the active transportation and on the transportation master plan. So for those watching at home, don't hesitate to share your views with us. This is looking forward in our community. So it's great if we can do it. Perfect. Thanks. On the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to Stormwater Management Master Plan RFP 2024-037 award. A motion that report ES 3924 relating to the Stormwater Management Master Plan RFP 2024-37 award be received for information, and further the council award RFP 2024-037 to Aquafor Beach Limited in the amount of $271,130 excluding HST. Moved by Councillor Wookey, second by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to the Yarmouth Yards Rail Spur and Shunting Yard pre-grading works acceleration opportunity. A motion that report ID 3024 relating to the acceleration opportunity for the Yarmouth Yards Rail Spur and Shunting Yard pre-grading works be received for information, and further that the Yarmouth Yards Rail Bridge and Spur Project tender 2024-023 be increased by $9,594,500 excluding HST. Moved by Councillor Wookey, second by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Councillor Clark.
Just wondering what the approximate savings will be by accelerating it and using the construction equipment that are on site already.
Mr. Lawrence?
Thanks very much. It'll be in the range of 10 to 20%. So Amoco's on site and they have their subcontractor is Ron Murphy Construction. So that's the large fleet that's there. Using that fleet when it's on site is the way you save the money. If they demobilize and then we have to compete with them, that would cost more. Compete with them getting jobs other places.
Okay. Councillor Wookey?
Thanks, Your Worship. Mr. Lawrence, I see that we're going to stockpile some of the fill to use later, but I thought the whole idea was we couldn't stockpile fill because like it's all clay and it's hard to compress, and that's why we brought all that other fill in the gravel fill. So what I'm just curious, what would this fill be used for if it can't be compressed to the level that was needed for the base of the PowerCo site? Thanks.
Lawrence?
To Councillor Wookey, the fill actually is reusable if it's at the right moisture content. So it was used for everything except the very base layer and the very top layer on the PowerCo site. So it's used as the entire middle, and as long as it's packed at the right moisture content, it's totally usable. This fill can be used to set up any number of sites and lots around the subdivision.
Further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Unless the members have any further items, your worship, under this committee.
I have Counselor Steve Peters. I changed your name.
I used to work with a guy at A&P in London, and his name was Peter Stevens, and he ever wanted to cause confusion. That
And
was
then,
it.
Counselor Baldwin Sands to follow you. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I have, thank you, Worship. I have two items that I'd like to raise under this committee. First, a question to Mr. Bray. We as a council didn't, in our last budget, did not approve new signage for Pinafore Park. And so we've been, we do not have a sign at the entranceway of Pinafore Park. I've heard from a couple people that have actually, if you're from out of town and you're driving down Elm Street, you miss Pinafore Park. And I'm just curious whether there's anything that we can do in a temporary, Jeff, Mr. Bray and I have had this discussion already, but I assured the individual that reached out to me again today that I would raise it again, that if there's something that we can do in a temporary basis to at least denote Pinafore Park until our next round of budgeting. And then I have another item.
Mr. Bray?
Thank you, Mayor Preston, through you to Councillor Peters. We've looked into this. We will be installing a very low-cost sign that's, for all intents and purposes, is temporary, but will have the same aesthetic and appearance as other park signs. As per our discussion, we have gone through a few preliminary designs for something substantial, and I would say iconic for both Waterworks and Pinafore Park, that we need to refine the design and get some more definitive costing on for budgetary purposes.
Thanks. My second item concerns St. Catherine Street reconstruction. This is part of the Kane Scott reconstruction that's taking place. And I appreciate staff's patience with me on this issue. We've been back and forth. Dan has actually come out for site visits on this. Staff and myself and my neighbors, particularly my neighbors, the residents of 43 St. Catherine, it's a 4-unit town or apartment, and the resident family at 45 St. Catherine, so this has nothing to do with my own property, are very concerned that during the reconstruction work, the boulevards, which had previously, prior to them being ripped out earlier this year, were asphalt. The whole street boulevard is asphalt between both sides of St. Catherine, between Talbot and Scott Street. When the city rebuilt the Westlake Evans Park and the new daycare, there's no grass boulevard. And the question being asked of me is, why do we have to have a grass boulevard here? The one area is 4 feet, 5 feet by 10 feet. A fourplex that at times has challenges cutting their grass, and I understand that. And the other property has just never had. So I sent some photos to members of council, and hopefully I saw the mayor out touring around today, so I know he went by. I just need to go on the record as saying I don't agree with the direction. I think it should be asphalt. And I'll leave it at that and look forward to hearing what staff has to say, but
I didn't know we'd have you as our guest speaker today, but this is great.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and through the mayor to Councillor Peters. The Kane Street project has a number existing asphalt boulevards, and as well as St. Catherine Street. And we've always tried our best to make things green, provide wider grass boulevards, make things greener. And there's a number of reasons for that. One is grass boulevards slow down the drainage for better stormwater management. They also provide a permeable surface for snow storage and winter maintenance. So it allows for absorption of the snow. Green landscaped areas on city streets reflect less sunlight and absorb less heat to lower the temperature in urban areas. Grass boulevards also provide a buffer between vehicles and pedestrians. And so it makes sidewalk areas safer for pedestrians of all ages and abilities. So that's the reasoning behind putting grass boulevards. And I know that the change from asphalt to grass will result in more grass to mow, but the end result will be a beautiful street that will be much more accessible and pedestrian friendly.
Go ahead, Councillor Peter.
Thanks. So this may have predated you. So the section of St. Catherine Street at Westlake Evans and the section of St. Catherine Street at the new daycare right out behind us, those have been rebuilt in the last 3 years. Has there been a policy change? If this was our policy to go green and we rebuilt 2 pieces of St. Catherine Street, why didn't we go green and we went concrete instead of asphalt?
And I can appreciate that. The daycare, for instance, has a loading bay. That's right there where the pedestrians or people exit their vehicle onto the sidewalk. And that's actually true on Westlake Evans, specifically on Curtis Street. I don't think there's parking on that side on St. Catherine Street, but it is for accessibility to the sidewalk. Now, there's no boulevard in those sections. It's more of a curb face sidewalk, which is somewhat of a difference. But generally speaking, on all the capital projects, we would look at providing that grass boulevard for the reasons mentioned.
Okay. Councillor Baldwin Sands? Sorry, you were finished, Councillor? Okay.
I have a new item. We okay for it?
Pardon?
Am I okay for a new item?
Yes.
Thank you very much. This is for Mr. Delebek, if I could please. It's about the pedestrian traffic lights. Over the last few weeks, I've been talking to many of the residents about the new pedestrian lights on Talbot Street. And it started out with a very small conversation, and the conversation organically grew. And some were saying that the pedestrian traffic lights there are not pronounced enough, especially when you're going east to west when the sun goes down. So it made it very difficult for the feedback I received. It's very difficult for people to see the actual lights going down. When the sun is going down and the lights go on, it's very difficult to maneuver that going down Talbot Street. This is for experienced drivers. It's not new drivers, because this is something that is new for experienced drivers. And they've also commented that pedestrians push the button and start walking into the street without making any reference to making eye contact with the drivers of the vehicle. So I was hoping for Mr. Delebek to provide some feedback and see if any members of council have also been receiving some comments in regards to these pedestrian crosswalks. Thank you.
Mr. Delebek?
Through the mayor to Councillor Baldwin Sands, I can let you know that the light intensity for the pedestrian crossovers, those rapid rectangular flashing beacons, is prescribed by the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So that'll sets the specification, the details, the nitty-gritty details, and that is called SAE J595. So everything, any product that we purchase has to be compliant with that specification. I have the cut sheet here, and it indicates that the ones that we installed on Talbot Street are MUTCD compliant. So we know that the lighting intensity as per, I can appreciate when the sun's setting as a driver, it may be more difficult to see those. And so the only thing that I can offer, I guess, is as a driver, we need to be aware that we have to be prepared to stop for pedestrians when we're approaching a PXO. There are warning signs well in advance of the PXO crossing to let you know that there could be the potential for a pedestrian entering into the roadway. And so that's incumbent upon us as drivers to be aware of those rules of the road and to make eye contact with the pedestrian. If you do happen to see a pedestrian, as well as the pedestrian to try to make eye contact with the motorist and signal your intention to cross and not just rely on the lights to cross the road safely. While the pedestrian has legal standing to be there when those are activated, it's still your life to make sure that the driver knows that you want to cross. Same thing for bicyclists, dismount and walk your bike safely across the street at these PXOs. So it's a shared responsibility between drivers and pedestrians. But the light intensity, I'm not really sure what much more we can do other than following the specification that's prescribed for us to follow.
Yeah, through your worship, we can take this back. I think we could look at maybe some additional public relations around this topic, both with our communications group and maybe with the St. Thomas Police Communications Group as well. But between the two of us, we have a fair amount of outreach, so we could maybe do some further education on pedestrian crossings.
I also believe it would be a good item for the mayor's update as well. It's a good public relations.
If I can add, and I know that Mr. Zielewek and I had a long conversation about my scooter ride from the accessibility group. Don Shaw and I went all the way from Shaw Valley up and over and down Elgin to Talbot, all the way down to, we had lunch at Wendy's, turned around and then went back across town using the Whistle Stop Trail for most of our way. Boy, when you're in a accessibility scooter, is that ever a safer ride than on, and I get it. I don't do it every day like he does, but so we did some good conversation about that on Mayor's Update too. So we'll just continue to talk about this. But one of the things Don and I talked about that day was the timing, how long by the time you start the light, and especially in a scooter, you're maybe lower before a car stops, then you can start your trip and it may stop flashing before you finish the other side of the road too. So you're right. Let's continue to talk about this all we can. But that was a fun day. You all should do it once. It's a eye-opening experience to ride an accessibility scooter around this town. And I did it 5 years ago with Don also, and the improvements we've made in those 5 years, 100%, second to none. Still a few things we could do a little bit better, right? But I was very pleased with how, and scared to death on some of our busy street crossings. It just is. And I apologize to the Yorks for damaging the scooter. Councillor Wookie.
Thanks very much. I was hoping to get a really quick update from Mr. Bray regarding the animal shelter tender and our situation with that. I know there are a lot of people that are very invested in this, and although we might know kind of what's going on, they certainly do not. Thanks.
Great. Mr. Bray.
Thank you, Mayor Preston, through you to Councillor Wookie. We've received the final tender package. We're just going through it one last time and it will be hopefully released next week.
So a timeline has come out as to now we're tendering, they're back by a certain date.
Correct.
Right.
I will keep council appraised of the closing date once it's established and the proposed construction schedule.
Great. Excellent. I like Councillor Wookie have heard from many people want to help us fundraise. And they're saying, well, can you tell us how it's going to, well, we can't wait till we start fundraising now if you want to help us fundraise. So
I don't want to steal Laura Keats' thunder, but she's set up a fundraising committee. We've had her first meeting last week.
Super.
So if you visit Facebook or contact Laura at the animal shelter, she can direct you appropriately.
Yeah. And I need your help because we've been just sharing everything the animal shelter's been doing to really get the word out there as to what's going on. There's an abundance of dogs and cats right now at our shelter, and we need your help too. So if you're on social media, just advance some of the cause. And thank you, Mr. Bray. Councillor Gibson, I almost forgot your name, Rose.
That's okay, Your Worship. It's already been a long day for you, I'm sure. when we were doing the flag raising on, I think it was Thursday, we did one. But anyhow, nonetheless, what day it was, a few of us had noticed how when people go up parking, where it says, parking for the accessibility with the signage,
Right.
the nose of their vehicle is like 6 to 8 inches past that sign. So I was just wondering, once again, we've had this mentioned before, if we can get some kind of a marking where your nose cannot go past that sign. Because if someone in a van, because they tend to be about 4 or 5 inches longer than the average van, they would actually be stuck in there until that person actually comes out.
Absolutely.
So maybe if we could have a review on, especially the one in front here on Talbot Street in front of City Hall, it's definitely too short. I think it needs to come back at least 8 inches. Thank you.
I think we can do a story about it, but I think our bylaw officer may make the point more emphatically. Counselor Clark?
No, the problem is just where the sign is and the length of, I don't think the bylaw officer, the person will be parked there or they won't be parked there because the area is too short. And we watched it twice happening. We actually need a line there so that the first car before that, doesn't go any further than that, so that it creates enough space for the vehicle to go into the space.
Right.
And it's not delineated, so you can park there and then it's doesn't create enough space.
I see I see Kevin nodding, and a blue handicap line at the spot that delineates the spot. Sounds like it might be a pretty easy solution to it too. Great. And then we send the bylaw officer. No. Any other questions or comments? All right, next.
We now move into corporate governance and administration. There's no items on the agenda at this time unless there are any items from the members. Seeing none, your worship, council will reconvene into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of council and committee of the whole as recorded in the minutes of this date be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
No reports of committees this evening. We now move into petitions and communications. First item is a letter has been received for proclamation and bell ringing for Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Awareness Day. I have a motion that Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim September 9th, 2024 as Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Awareness Day in the City of St. Thomas, and further that the bells at City Hall be rung 9 times at 9:09 a.m. on September 9th, 2024. Moved by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That's carried.
Next item is a request for a proclamation and flag raising for Public Library Week. I have a motion that Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim October 21st to 27th, 2024 as Public Library Week in the City of St. Thomas, and further that the Libraries for Life flag be flown at City Hall from October 22nd to 27th, 2024, and further that the flag raising ceremony be held on October 22nd, 2024 at 10 a.m. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. We've booked Library Day. We've booked Library Day. Okay.
And next item, a petition has been received from Bill Rattray, 64 Foxtail Lane, requesting the addition of removable speed bumps, a 4-way stop, and 40 km/h speed limit on streets within Miller's Pond subdivision. I have a motion that should council wish that the petition received from Mr. Rattray be referred to the Environmental Services Department for a report. Moved by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Great. Questions or comments? Councillor Clark.
Yeah, have we assumed that subdivision yet, or is it still the developers? Because there's signs in the subdivision that.
I think yes, but I'm going to ask Mr. Dealeybeck. Is it ours?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
This development was proceed, I think, under 4 or 5 phases. So some phases, some parts of phase 1 or 2 or 2A may be assumed by the city, but the remaining phases are not.
Okay. So the motion was to defer it to environmental services. Further questions or comments? No, Councillor Peters?
Your worship, not prejudging what the report is going to come back at, but whether it's part of this report, part of the transportation master plan, like this isn't the first time. I can think of Pine Valley is probably the most recent one where they wanted traffic calming devices. You hear from people regularly that, speed limits should be reduced. And I would rather see us, if we're going to start to go down this road, instead of doing things sort of on a haphazard basis or a one-off basis, that perhaps we should be considering as a council, are we going to stick with 50, 60 kilometer zones forever and ever? Or do we need to start looking at some of these subdivisions? Because I can think of another, Lake Margaret Trail can be a speedway at times as well too. And Confederation, I'd be interested to hear from Kevin if we just deal with this as an individual case or look at the bigger picture.
Kevin, before you start, I also pass, as we get each of these, on to our local police services and say, here's another area because they rotate around their traffic enforcement and so they can actually get a real read on how many cars are stopped, how many are charged and the like. So, Kevin?
Through the mayor to council, yeah, we work closely with police services on these types of items. Council may recall recently an always stop control policy was approved by council. So we'll apply that to make sure, we're being consistent in our approach. And if we don't like the way that approach is going, then that's fine. Let's change the policy and council can have the authority to do that, of course. We have a traffic calming policy. So we should probably review that as part of the transportation master plan to make sure that the policy is still current with all the new tools that are available to us. Council had asked staff to look at automated speed enforcement. That's a report that we're working on right now. Hoping to get that in front of council shortly to talk about other tools as well. Perhaps we need to develop a speed management program to help deal with these in a consistent manner. So there's a lot of work that we can do in this space so that we are consistent in our approach. Yeah. And if our approach needs to change, then as council, we can change that approach. And that way we're just treating everything consistently.
Great, thank you. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of referring it to environmental services? That's carried.
Next item is a letter received from the St. Thomas Cemetery Company requesting a grant and development of a funding and servicing plan between the city and the cemetery board. If council wishes, a motion that the letter received from Mr. Marks for a grant and the development of a funding and servicing plan be referred to the Treasury Department for a report. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item is a letter received from the Southwestern Public Health regarding 2 reports, household food insecurity in the Southwestern Public Health region and effective policy-based solutions, and addressing food insecurity and poverty in Oxford County, Elgin County, and the city of St. Thomas, 2023. The last item under petitions, notice has been received from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing that Minister's Zoning Order Ontario Regulation 324/24 for the city of St. Thomas has been filed, and that's for the industrial area. Your worship, unless there are any items from the members relating to petitions and communications, we'll now move into unfinished business of council.
Seeing none.
We'll now move into new business of council.
Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
Thank you so very much. I, with Councillor Peters and You, Mr. Mayor, are heading to AMO
Yes.
next week, and we're being joined with the city manager. And I was hoping that you would provide to the public a little bit of an update of what we are going to be doing besides attending the seminars on August 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st. Some of the delegations that we have been achieved to have and will be holding when we are in Ottawa. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin says. We've been exceptionally fortunate over the last number of years, 4 or 5 years, of tending to get the requested ministries that we want to ask about certain topics. And so let me just give you a quick rundown. Monday morning, we're meeting the Ministry of Transportation. This one is kind of a twofold presentation. One is with the City of London and the County of Middlesex also to talk about the extension of the pilot project on the Middlesex Connects bus, but we're also talking just in general about the other work that the Ministry of Transportation, MTO, is doing in our community with the extension of Highway 3 or the twinning of Highway 3 and a number of other pieces. So we're happy to have that meeting. That afternoon, we're meeting with the Minister, the Solicitor General, on a couple of topics having to do with our police force and court security. And we hope to have a quick conversation about parking in the courthouse district. The community has issued a lot of parking to the courthouse, and we're talking about what might work better for us. The Ministry of Education follows that meeting. And that one is about the same meeting we've had in almost every AMO, but talking repetition works in education. So we're going to talk about planning with the city of St. Thomas on the planning of future growth in the Thames Valley District School Board and the London District Catholic School Board also. And so we'll have that good conversation. Later that day, or to end that day, we meet with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to talk about what we've been doing for growth in housing, affordability in housing, and supportive housing here in St. Thomas, and some of the great successes we've had and how they can help us with more, because we're ready to do more. Then the Minister of Sport. I don't think we'll talk about a recreational center at all, so I don't know why we're meeting. No, I'm just teasing, Councillor Baldwin Sands. I'm going to let you lead that one. And then that's Tuesday morning, and then Tuesday morning again, the Minister of Health. We're talking with the Associate Minister of Health for Mental Health, Michael Tabulo, and he and I have met so many times. We're now great friends. But this one is a joint delegation between Oxford County, Elgin County, and St. Thomas through Southwest Public Health on a project called Planet Youth. It is a youth anti-drug strategy. And we know that Minister Tabulo, it's called the Icelandic model. Minister Tabulo was recently over to Iceland and has seen it. We've spent a great deal of time talking about it too. And so we're hoping he'll pick us as one of the spots to kind of pilot project this too. So it's a delegation of Oxford County Warden, myself, the Elgin County Warden, and what. So when you go with partners, you tend to get more. But I want to thank Councillor Peters, Councillor Baldwin Sands, City Manager for going with us. Ottawa's a lovely city this time of year, and we'll get to meet a lot of friends from across the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and a lot of members of provincial parliament. Minister Flack will be with us at a number of our presentations because he kind of rotates around with what municipality in his riding he's with on each one. So we'll give you a full report here and on Mayor's Update when we get back. Right? If we have an opportunity next Tuesday night, we might do a Mayor's Update from Ottawa. So, and that's what we have. Thank you.
Your Worship, if there's no further items under new business, we'll now move into bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I have a motion by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Herbert, that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to Council and Committee of the Whole, and read a second time.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First bylaw, please.
First bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on August the 12th, 2024.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Next bylaw, please.
Second bylaw is a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and 1855673 Ontario Limited. This relates to Committee of Adjustment matter 10 Highbury Avenue.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Next bylaw, please.
Third bylaw is a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and JEG Home Solutions, Inc. Also relates to Committee of Adjustment matter 30 South Edgeware Road.
Questions or comments? Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, Your Worship, Mr. Chair. I just want to remind the public and those residents, particularly on South Edgeware Road, that this decision that we are about to make and pass tonight is not a decision that we made ourselves, that this was made by an outside unelected appointed body known as LPAT. And notwithstanding the fact that the city of St. Thomas, this council turned down the application, this unelected appointed body imposed this decision on us.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Any further questions or comments on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw, please.
Fourth bylaw is bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and Performance Communities Realty, Inc. This relates to a site plan matter at 2 Ontario Road for an office building.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Your worship, I rise and report the successful passing of the 4 bylaws.
Great.
I have a motion by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Herbert, that the report of council and committee of the whole on the 4 bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time, engrossed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
No public notice or notices of motion this evening. There is a need to move into closed session. I have a motion that this meeting be closed to deal with 2 matters of a proposed or pending disposition of land and 3 matters of a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality. Moved by Councillor McCauley, second by Councillor Gibson.
Before we vote on it, again, the warning that we're going into closed session now. When we rise from close, we'll go back into open in order to adjourn for the meeting for today. And so we thank you for joining us today, for those watching at home and for those here. Thank you for coming and doing it. And so for closed session, all those in favor?